So this is a talk on growing developers, and I'm from EduSource. My name is Jason Beutler. I'm the president of EduSource. I founded it in 2012. Basically, I'd worked my way up through technology, become vice president of IT at a company. Enjoyed that, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So stepped out on my own in 2010, did a series of independent consulting jobs. Really, it was just me. I mean, the name of my company is actually J.R. Beutler Incorporated because I'm super creative like that. And so we put together, it was just me going around consulting at places. I ended up consulting at an organization that was doing a lot of outsourcing. I also, on the side, get offered to teach at a local university. I'm from Indiana, by the way, Indianapolis, Indiana. So it's a little north and it's a little colder, normally. Though this summer's been weird. It's a little hot up there. But Indiana, I went to a small school up there called Taylor University, and Taylor brought me in to teach their software engineering class. At the same time that I was managing this project that was doing, it was about 30 full-time developers on this ERP type of system for transportation, logistics organization. It was kind of fun. I enjoy working with young people. It's a passion of my wife and I. My wife and I own the business together, by the way. So Kendra, she's sitting in the back there with me to critique me and give me all the ums and whatevers that I say while I'm up here. But Kendra and I are on this together. Kendra has been in education for most of her life. She teaches journalism and layout and design, and then I'm the computer guy. So both of us have been really passionate around youth. Well, I was teaching this class. I was also then working with a program with this project that was outsourcing overseas, various different places. And the particular team that we were outsourcing to was not doing a very good job. That's not always the case, I know, but in this instance, it wasn't doing a great job. I was working with my sophomores and my computer science class at the time, it was a software engineering class, and they were producing some pretty darn good code. And so the idea kind of struck, hey, what if instead of outsourcing overseas, what if we EduSource to local education communities, could we pull that off and be successful with it? That's what the idea was. So in 2013, we started our first apprenticeship program. The idea here was to bring in juniors and seniors in a qualified computer science program. So they had really already know coding. We weren't teaching the basics of coding, we're teaching more software engineering. We wanted to bring them in and we were gonna put them into a 2-year-long commitment. We were going to put them on real projects, do real stuff, and see if we could actually produce real software with them. It's kind of an experiment to start out, and it didn't go well. So it didn't go well at all, actually. We lost our first client pretty quickly, but there was enough there that just made me think, this should be doable. So we set out to figure out how to make it happen. So we're 5 years in now. We've had probably about 30 apprentices come through our program. We have 10 on staff right now. Our company is relatively small, so we have about 20 full-time employees doing software engineering and then 10 apprentices, so 30 total on staff. And so this is 40 hours a week during the summer. We come in, we put them on real teams, we match them up, they work together, we throw them in to the deep end right off the bat. And then from there they build software, and so our reputation is really staked on the fact that they have to be able to deliver. And they have to be able to produce this high quality software. So I like to talk about it this way. EduSource is really a people development company. We're a leadership and training and development company. Our waste is high quality software. And that's the way I like to categorize it. So does that make sense? Okay. You're not going to have a lot of feedback today, am I? That's going to make me really nervous. Awesome. So 40 hours a week during the summer, 15 to 20 hours a week during the school year. Everyone wins. Students get paid well, so they actually can help pay down their school debt while they're working with us. And businesses can get affordable software. I'm not as cheap as outsourcing. Don't claim to be. Not trying to be. But we can get a benefit there. And in the meantime, you're also investing in young people, which I think is a real asset and a real value. And then EduSource gets a win because we get a 2-year try before you buy period. So we know who comes out of there. As a result, we had to learn a lot. We had to learn a lot about how to work with young people. We had to learn a lot about how to be effective in building software. It's different when you take, Jonathan Trick is sitting in the back. He's one of my senior engineers. If you take, I have 2 Johns, right? Jonathan Trick and John Hass. So we call them Trick and Hass. So if you take Trick and Hass and myself with our background, and we build software one way. If you put in a bunch of newbies who haven't really built software before, you have a different set of problems you need to address. And so that's what we set out to address. So that's the background. This is my son. This is my son about 6 years ago. I think he was 6 at the time. my son wants to be a rock star. So that's his dream. That's what he wanted to be. So we buy him a guitar. We found a nice little Fender Squier, and we set him up, and we're like, okay, let's have at it. Jabin, well, I know a little bit about guitar. I played in college, you know, the side band thing that you do when you're in college. I won't go into that because that'd be embarrassing. But my son wanted to do this, so I picked it up with him, and I started teaching him some basic chords and some basic, you know, progressions and how he could play. And it went okay. It didn't go wonderful. At the end of the day, though, Jabin just didn't want to practice. And so we want to be a rock star, but we don't really want to put in the effort. We didn't really want to do what was necessary. So the guitar kind of got put off to the side. Wasn't really used. There wasn't a lot of energy. He was excited about the vision, but he wasn't excited about the work to get there. Has anyone heard of the company School of Rock? Anyone? You've heard of the movie, right? Have you seen the company? So this company, about 2 years in, my wife and I run into this School of Rock, and what they do is they take young people and they put them in a band. They have no idea what they're doing. They've never played an instrument before, so my son, again, has not touched his guitar since we bought it for him for 2 years. All of a sudden, we put him in a band. The coach works with him, but what they've done is they set a goal for them. They're going to do a performance at a local bar with lights and everything. Jabin's attitude towards guitar changed. So this is my son 2 months after he, for the very first time, actually picked up guitar and started doing it. So. Not bad for 2 months, right? So what was so fun about this is, like, I mean, they just put them in there and they're like, all right, we're gonna play songs, we're gonna play music, and you're gonna perform. And then you can see here, he gets into it a little bit now. So he starts dancing up there. He gets all excited. My son has not put down the guitar since. So he is not, I think at this point he was, what, 7, 8? He's now 12. He continues to play. He now is all about creating a band. He's now picked up drums. He's picked up like 3 other instruments. He plays percussion in the school band, guitar constantly. He's singing at every opportunity he gets. One day, Kendra and I came home and Jim was like, so I signed up for the talent show. I was like, really? What are you doing? He's like, well, I'm singing some song I'd never heard of before. It's like, really? He's like, do you want to practice? And he's like, no, I got it. And he goes up and starts, and like he works on it, figures it out on his own. It became a thing with him. So the question then that I start to think about is, why did this work? Is anyone familiar with this book? Okay, this is a good book. It's been out for a while now. However, it hits some things I think are important, right? This idea of mastery, autonomy, and purpose. So what is mastery? We all want to be working towards being the best at something. Like we want to be putting our energies towards something we care about. We want to be, at the end of the day, at the end of our careers, we want to be known for something, right? So we want to become a master in that level. What's autonomy? Like we want to be able to control our own future. We want to be able to be trusted. We want to know that people are going to trust us to get things done, and we want to be in control of all of that. And finally, we want purpose. We want to work on something that has meaning. So as I think about my son and what was going on there, why did School of Rock work? Well, it starts off with, there's some mastery, primarily being he's playing actual rock and roll music, and he had a guitar solo. Second, his sister couldn't do it. That was far more important than anything else. So his sister did not know how to play guitar, therefore he was mastering something. He felt like he was becoming good at it. Autonomy. He had a coach. He had a person who had come in and she was teaching them all music and she was getting them all to work together. They played 2 or 3 songs that first time. That was the only one that was good. The other ones, so. But anyways, he had a coach there, but at the end of the day, his reputation was on the line. So he had to control his own success and he knew it, and so he practiced. Purpose. There were lights, there was a crowd, we were screaming, there was cranked up amps, loud drums, he was putting on a full-blown show. That was awesome, he had purpose. Practice was no longer just about learning scales and chords, it was about a show. That mattered. It was meaning, it gave him a reason to be doing what he was doing. And so then, I add this one, peer review. He wasn't gonna let his teammates down. They were all his age, and they all were just as scared about being up there as he was. And so he was going to go above and beyond to make sure that, especially because he was singing and playing, he wanted to make sure that he was on point for him. And that was really important. So that then gets me start now to talking about applying this to our young developers. We want challenges, right? Young developers, we all want challenges. Young developers, though, in terms of mastery, they're not sure where they're going yet. They're not exactly sure what it is they're going to be working on or even what they're passionate about, but they want a challenge. They want to be challenged, and they want to know that they're working on something that's hard and isn't necessarily just a simple outcome or a simple project. They want it to be challenging. They want to be trusted. They want to be left alone. They want to be given something and trust they're going to deliver it. A lot of mistakes that I see around this is we do a lot of like pair programming with our devs, where we'll put them down and we'll say, okay, here's a really experienced person and you sit behind them and watch. And they occasionally point out the missing semicolon. But other than that, it's like they're not engaged. They're not autonomous. They're not being trusted on that level. And I think you lose that you lose their connectedness. You lose their engagement when you do that to them. They want to be working on real stuff. They don't like to work on off-the-side stuff, right? They don't like to be working on projects that aren't vital and aren't important. They want to be engaged at that level. They want to know that their effort and their daily activity is actually paying dividends. And then finally, I believe peer review. We work best when our reputation is on the line. Here's the deal. This is all theory, right? It's all theoretical. It all makes sense on paper. And I don't know that anyone on here would disagree with that people want mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And that's awesome. I believed it when we started out, but I already told you that our first project failed horribly. So at the end of the day, it's our necks that are on the line, right? At the end of the day, I'm the one that has to say, hey, young dev, I'm gonna put you on a real project, but if you don't show up and you don't get this thing done, the client's calling me. The client is coming after me and is going to be angry at me. So this theory is all fine, and I actually buy it, and I believe it, and I think it's important. But it's not enough. Like, I've got to have more. I've got to have something that I can hold on to so that I can know that things are going to be successful. Otherwise, I'm not going to trust young people. At the end of the day, we know young people are effective, right? Because, I mean, you see this all the time. Actually, the last guy that was just talking in here, anyone come to his session? He finished it up, I thought it was interesting, by talking about the S&P 500. Like 20 years ago, the average age of the S&P 500 was something like 75 years old was how old the company was. And in the last 5 years, it's like come down to like 14 years is the average age of the company. So we're moving younger and younger. We're trusting newer and newer people and newer concepts. We're no longer relying on this like massive set of experience to drive our economy. But yeah, in devs, that's often what we do. In the dev shops, that's what we do. As I talk with companies around Indianapolis and I go in, they're looking for the immediate fix, right? They're looking for the people who can come in and solve the problem. They're not looking to train someone. That's not the goal. They want to hire someone who can come in and fix the problem right now. And so how do we create an environment where we can know that we're solving the problem now, but at the same time we're developing young people? Because frankly, anyone read Rookie Smarts by Liz Wiseman out of Oracle? She talks about the most innovative ideas come from people who haven't ever really thought about the problem in the first place, because they're not constrained by the boxes that they exist within. So we have all these young people that are coming out that aren't constrained by any of these boxes, but yet we don't trust them enough to put them in an environment where they can be successful and they can bring that kind of energy and innovation to us. So how do we get there? I'm not pretending I have the answer, but I've been down the path and I've been down the road now for going on 4 years. So I might have a little bit of experience on that front I want to share on what we've done. So I believe that to make this practical, you have to bring in accountability. It's that word. That word has a lot of negative connotations in general, specifically, I guess, in the way that I came up through my development career. Accountability was more of a stick than it was anything exciting or anything that actually motivated you to do work. It was more of, I'm holding you accountable, meaning if you don't meet this expectation, you will either be fired or punished in some way, shape, or form. But that's not what it really is. That's not what it has to be. And I think that, to me, is probably the biggest insight that I've gleaned through my career over the last maybe 5 years, is accountability is actually a very empowering tool that can create autonomy, can create mastery, and can give purpose to people. And so here are some of the tools that we've put in place. And we'll talk about them in detail. We've created is probably the wrong word. We've morphed our own version of lots of different tools, lots of different things into our own concept that we call daily layered accountability. And this is a process that enables us to allow our dev teams to be autonomous and know how they operate on a daily basis. Peer review, we've embraced it wholeheartedly. I went to a session this morning on code review tools. It's a core fundamental practice that we use. Again, our reputation is staked on software being built by young people. So there's a certain level of making us feel comfortable that what's being delivered is being delivered effectively. But there's also that concept my son had, right? Where he's standing up there with a team and he's got to perform and he's got to make sure that that team's on board. When you write code and you put it in front of people, it's a whole different feel on that front. And then I believe a lot in early empowerment. I believe that you learn through mistakes, you learn through failure. That's a kind of an old cliche now that has been said over and over again, but it's so true. And so I think you do learn from the actual experience of doing things. So we have to give you those experiences earlier. The whole concept of leadership is bred, not born. So if that's the case, then we got to get you leading earlier. If we wait too long, then you're behind the 8 ball. So we'll talk about some of these. Daily layered accountability. This is really hard to talk about. And the reason it's hard to talk about is because it was like a year and a half, I guess we're going on 2-year-long process now of us figuring this out. So all of the steps we took to get to this point I feel like I'm glossing over in like a 2-minute time frame, and it just doesn't feel like I'm giving it enough importance of what it is that we've done. It really, at the end of the day, it's a stand-up. I mean, we do a stand-up daily. The difference being is that the stand-up is run by very small autonomous teams. They're left on their own. We don't really have middle management overseeing that. The team lead, the technical lead is running that. Most of our technical leads have been out of school within like the last 3 years. They graduated, and they're leading up our teams. So those people are running a small team made up of primarily what we refer to as apprentices, and they're talking about, is this project on time, is it effective? We have red-green statuses. So what we do is every one of these metrics that we go through is given it's either red or it's green. So if it's green, it means it's inside of control. Very much lean manufacturing style, right? So if it's green, we're inside of control. If we're in control, then that means the project is fine, it's on target, we're good. If it goes red, that means that we've gone out of control in some way, shape, or form. And that triggers a whole series of processes. The first thing that it does is what we refer to as a root cause analysis. Why did it go out of control? And that usually is because I didn't get it done on time or something along those lines. But then you have to dig at it a little, right? So you dig at the whole 5 why strategy, like let's actually get down to the root cause of what really happened here. But why did it get out of control? We then gather that information together over time in a Pareto chart. Again, very lean manufacturing style. Using that concept, that helps us identify a lot of the low-hanging fruit or root causes of the issues that we're dealing with so we can fix them going forward. That's a lot of Trick's job. If you have questions on that, you can ask the guy in the back corner. So looking at these metrics, what are we talking about? Again, these are 5 metrics that I look at them and I'm like, I cannot express to you the amount of effort and blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting here, okay? But we had to work hard at it. Any more than 5 or 6 and it's too much. People can't operate, people can't understand and know what they're doing with it. Too few, and there's not enough balances to keep it all in check. So we start with schedule. Earned value management, people in here? Anyone done that kind of work? Okay, so it's an earned value management calculation is essentially what that is. And it's looking at projecting, are we on schedule based upon the workflow that we're doing and the amount of effort that we're putting in place here. So this is calculated, is it hourly now, Trick?
It's every time a story changes.
Okay, so it's calculated real time. So this is calculated real time as work is getting done. We are updating an earned value management schedule index that gives us an indication. Essentially, if the number is above 1, that means we're trending on time and we'll be able to deliver on schedule. If the number is below 1, that means that we're falling behind. And if we're falling behind, we better do something about it. So this metric will be red or green depending upon how that calculation comes out. Now, it's one thing to say we're on schedule. It's another to say we're working efficiently. And so we have an efficiency metric. We might be on schedule right now, but our efficiency might be plummeting. And if our efficiency is plummeting, we're eventually going to be off schedule. So we want an early indicator of that. This efficiency metric is really our own metric that we made up. It's based upon a series of assumptions that we've been able to make within the organization, within our organization, around how we do tasks and how we're doing this work. But it gives it, again, it's a real-time indication of are we working efficiently? By efficiently, we mean something along the lines of, let's say we've sized a story a small. And so in our world, we operate in the agile environment, but we're Kanban from the agile standpoint. So in our world, that means from the time that you start to the time that you deliver it into user acceptance testing should take about 3 days for a small story. So we're looking at efficiency metric that says, are we going to deliver in that scale, on that time frame? Are we going to be able to deliver that one story in the expected time frame that we have on that? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. That's not the point. It's an average over time. But the point is it gives us an indication now. If that goes red, that means we now know, we have at least an early indication that the team is falling behind. They're not working as efficiently as they could be working. Could be any number of things going on, but that's what the root cause analysis is for. So schedule says, are we trending for the whole project to get it done on time? Efficiency says, are we working the tasks basically at the level that we should be working them, at the rate that we should be working them? Our Kanban method here, this is a lot around our code review and are we following our policies? So again, we have our boards, we have our visual boards and how that all works. Are we breaking the column maxes? Because if you don't know, you're going to break them and then you're going to break that whole rule of limiting work in process, increasing quality. All that has to happen, has to exist for that to work. So we want to make sure you're not breaking any of those rules. In addition, and I'm going to talk about this more under our peer review, but we have a pretty sophisticated code review process that we use. And if we're not following that process, this metric will show up as out of control again, so we'll go red. Quality, is our code quality acceptable? We embrace the automation around all of that. We're rolling out a tool right now that basically does code quality analysis of tools every time of the code every time we check it in to give us an indication of are we hitting our acceptable level. And with this tool that we're using, and if you want more of those details, again, that's going to be Trick in the back corner. This tool that we're using, it's essentially setting a minimum expectation of what our code should be. So things like, are the method sizes manageable? Are we hitting the standards? Are we doing the kinds of things that do we have unit test coverage, at least at some level? So those then give us a quality metric, and then what we do is we set a minimum threshold per project. Sometimes you inherit code, and you'd love that code to be an A. It's not. It's more like a 30% code quality. You just don't want to make it worse at this point, right? So we set a threshold down there so that it doesn't get worse. And then we can slowly start easing it up so we can increase quality over time. But this is a metric that, again, it's as we check in code and as we're running it, it is a pseudo real time. Cost, are we on budget? That's also coming out of earned value management, looking at the expected planned expenditures versus the real planned expenditures. And that gives an indication to the team. So why does all this matter? As a team that has no management experience, and essentially you're 2 years out, the leader of the team is 1 to 2 years out of school, has never managed anybody in their life, and is still learning how to build software, we feel that given these metrics, if all of these are green, that the project will be on time and the project will be delivered effectively and high enough quality that we would be proud to put our stamp on it and deliver it to our clients. So this is our accountability. So every day they come together in the morning and they have their stand up, but they're not talking necessarily about what they are doing or what they did yesterday, what they're going to do today and what's blocking them. They're talking about, are we meeting the expectations of the project as a whole? And are we looking at that? Now, we still have the here's what I'm going to do today type of thing, because that's also a form of accountability. But as long as these are green, I know that that project is probably on target and is safe. If any of them go red, I know that I probably need to talk to that person. So, we tracking? This is one of our boards. So this is actual wall. It's a magnetic wall that we've painted in our office. And you can see, it's a little blurry, but you can see that we have the metrics on each of these. And that's how we actually move it through. So every day they come and they pull these down. We have it all digitally for historical and tracking and analytics purposes. There's something about tangibly coloring in a square. It matters. And it really, when you have to color something red, I don't know if it's like a walk of shame or what, but it's impactful. So as you talk about each of these metrics and you're coloring them in and then we're putting them on the board, I can walk by this board, and I do multiple times a day, and I just do a quick look at it. It's like, how are we trending on all these projects? So these are all of our active projects going right now. Here are ones through sales. We're rolling this out now, not only in dev, we're starting to roll it in all the rest of the company as well. But from the dev standpoint, as this is happening, I can now look at this and say, I can see which projects I'm a little concerned about. I can't see any red ones on here right now, so they must, oh, this one's got a schedule that's red. I don't know what project it is, but I can walk through, immediately see that, and then know who I need to talk to. So something else then to talk about from the DLA side. So there's DLA, again, daily layered accountability. So the metrics are our accountability. That's how we're operating. The layered part. We've got our individual teams, and so they operate independently. And so these people will get together in the morning, have their conversation, do what they need to do, make sure that all the metrics are on target. Then one member from each of those teams comes and has a meeting together as a whole group. So we layer it. So instead of having everybody have the meeting with everyone in there, one member from each team comes up and has a meeting with Trick, who manages all of our production and delivery. And so then Trick will talk with each of the members and make sure that they are on target, make sure we understand what's happening, have any issues that need to be raised that they didn't feel that they could handle because of what was going on or the complexity of the issue that existed. That gets pulled up into this team, and then Trick as the team can solve that. If Trick doesn't feel that he can solve it, say a client's really angry and is asking for everything for free, that never happens, then it gets raised up to what we refer to as our weekly layered accountability, and that's with the entire management team that crosses not only production but also sales, finance, and other aspects of the company so that everyone is aware of what's going on within the organization as a whole. So does that make sense from that layered standpoint? So this is what enables us to essentially, through the accountability of the metrics, we can push autonomy down to the teams and not have to micromanage them. We can allow the metrics to hold them accountable to that. We can then allow them to start raising their own issues, which then gives them that feeling of control over their own environment and their own project. They then can raise those issues up as needed. Otherwise, as long as they're green, they're free to do within reason whatever they need to do to get that project done. Does that make sense? So we're getting a lot of individualism. We're getting a lot of early training in terms of leadership. And we're allowing that then to funnel all the way up to the top as needed as those issues come to fruition. So why is this important in developing young developers? Because their voice is heard daily. Dylan, who's sitting in the back, I think is the only apprentice that has come. We brought a whole slew of them, right? We felt like it was important for them to see a professional development conference. You're a senior in college, or going into a senior year in college, and Dylan is one of our leaders on our team that is running this on a daily basis, and he's just as involved as Ryan, who is his immediate full-time manager is, and they're having conversations. And so we're getting them tied in early. We're getting that experience of being involved in making those kinds of decisions so that they can understand the impact they have on the company as a whole. Okay. That makes sure that a project's getting done on time, but it doesn't necessarily make sure that we're actually building quality code. And so that's the next thing we have to do, and the next step that we need to get into. So we do employ, obviously, architectural level people. John Hassemeyer is our director of architecture. He's not in here. He's probably at another session. You'll see him walking around in the green shirt with a big beard. John will basically kind of help set some of that direction. But really, at the end of the day, once that direction's set, it's still necessary for people to follow it. And that isn't always done, right? Unless there's some type of accountability around that. Peer accountability, I think, is one of our biggest assets that we've brought in to the process as a whole. As we're going through our development process, once they get out of functional development and they've tested it and they know that it works, it then is submitted to code review. We use the Atlassian product, so we use Crucible, and it goes into the Crucible environment where it is then reviewed. It is not reviewed just like cursorily. It is reviewed by up to 6 or 7 people. There's another one on here that's just general review. But there are 6 different lenses, and before you can move out of code review, that piece of functionality has to be reviewed from all 6 of these lenses. Obviously, we automate where we can automate, but it's still very good for people to sit down and look at things from a standard standpoint. Are we following it? So from standards, it's just, you're just looking at it, do we follow the standards? Whatever we believe, whatever we've decided policy-wise, and whether or not the braces are on the line with the if or after it, we're gonna follow it, and we're gonna make sure that everyone's following it from that standpoint. And that goes through those standards. Same with UI user experience. Does it actually meet the expectation of the user? Is it actually usable? We're mostly back-end devs, so from that standpoint, we want to make sure that it flows, make sure someone's looking at it from that standpoint. Did we actually do unit testing around this or not? And if not, then it needs to be sent back. Do some basics. Make sure you at least got the bases covered before we move on. I'm not asking for 100%, but let's just make sure we got some of the bases covered. So you're looking at it from each of the completeness. Did you catch every edge case? So have someone else looking at it from that standpoint. And this goes back and forth. Now, to do this, you have to create a culture in the company that is very open and it allows there to be a lot of candor. I went through this just recently. I hadn't written code in a long time. They don't let me, they make me sell. So I'm out doing sales and I come back and I got this idea for an app I want to write. So I start putting the thing together and I submit it for code review. I'm thinking this is going to be cake. It's going to be a slam dunk. I'm going to be out of here in seconds. I don't know, it took me a week and a half to get through code review. And I think I had over 100 comments and tasks of things that I had to go through and change. So that's awesome. And it's awesome because, I mean, it was apprentices slamming me for missing standards. It was everyone. And I just stand in front of everyone and be like, thank you, right? Like, that's what we want. That's the environment that we need here. So if you're going to do the code review, you have to be, if you're going to dish it, you have to take it too, right? So we're saying this is important. Well, then when it comes back, I embraced that it's important, and I made all those changes. And what I thought should have been a half a 3-day project most turned into a week and a half. But that was okay because well, the code's a lot better. I mean, it really is a lot better. And it was a result of that. Policies and things had changed over the times, and I didn't know it, and so I didn't catch those things, and now I know. And so that's really, I think it's a vital aspect. But from a young developer standpoint, that also helps them. When our apprentices show up the first week, by usually day 3 or 4, we've got them in code, in a production environment, working on a production type of system that we want them to deliver within like 3 to 5 days. The first time they submit a code review, it's brutal. But how else do you learn, right? So you get in that environment now, we're not talking, it has meaning, it has purpose, because if this goes into production, it's going to take someone's systems down. It's not going to work, so we got to talk about it. By the 2nd or 3rd week, their code reviews aren't bad anymore. They understand the impact, they understand the decisions, they're making different decisions on a daily basis on how they write code. And a lot of that, I think, is because of the peer review. And because of the intensity of the peer review and how much we put into it and how much effort we put into that. And they know their reputation is staked on that in a lot of ways. So any questions on those? Empowerment. So again, I believe that leadership is something that is trained. I believe it's something that you get through experience. I believe that there are some characteristics that give people charisma, but at the end of the day, that's not leadership. Leadership is about leading, setting direction, people following you as you're moving forward. And you get that through actually practicing it. One of the biggest mistakes I made in my life, I used to be vice president for a company called Sport Graphics. Sport Graphics does all of the large format signage for the Final Four. So like the big, huge, if you guys watch the basketball tournaments, the big, huge signs that are on the actual court. Sport Graphics would design those and install them. The Indianapolis 500 is based in Indianapolis. It's kind of a big deal around us. You'll have the entire hotels, like, what are they, 90 stories tall, that just have these huge graphics that fill the whole building. I was vice president of a company that did that. Total side note, first day I'm on job there, and I go in, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm young. I shouldn't have been promoted to this level at that point, right? I think I'm like 28 at this point. And I'm pulled in because they're having a major urgent issue. So I sit down, I'm like, well, what's the issue? They start telling me about it. I was like, well, let's get the client on the phone and just deal with it. And they looked at me horrified. And I was like, it's the client, let's just call him. He's like, okay. So they pick up the phone and they start dialing. And the guy on the other end goes, this is Peyton Manning. It's like, oh, okay. So a little different. I wasn't expecting that. Hall of Fame quarterback for the Colts, for those that don't watch football or care about it. But that was the kind of environment that I was in there. So it was neat. A little intimidating, though, from that point on. Anyways, one of the worst things I did is I took a guy who was just a killer dev and was developing all sorts of very cool applications for us, and I moved him into management. And it's like it was a disaster. Immediately, productivity fell, morale fell all around us. I was just watching the team crumble around me, and I couldn't figure out why, because I had the most talented person leading that team. He'd never been in a leadership role. He didn't understand what it meant to be a leader. He didn't understand the implications of the words he used. He didn't communicate well. Like, there are all sorts of reasons why it didn't work. And at the end of the day, it wasn't that he wasn't capable, it was that he didn't know. And so one of the passions I really have is starting very young. From day one, well, not day one. The first year, just figure out the systems that we have. We have a lot of processes, a lot of tools. We're very process driven. So it takes you a little while as a junior apprentice to get through all that. But once you're a senior apprentice, and Dylan's been a great example of this. Dylan just goes to all of our juniors and is making sure that they have what they need to be successful. He's in a leadership role. He needs to be. We encourage it, we push it. It's vital to what we do. But then once you graduate, I don't say, okay, you're now my junior dev that's going to sit on a team. No, you're in a leadership role now. Now you have apprentices that you're leading. You have something to offer. You need to be offering that. You need to be learning how to communicate. You need to be building that kind of experience, and so that when you have, in this industry now, 4.5 years of experience, you're now like one of the senior people in your office. You know how to communicate and you know how to lead, and that will help raise the bar across the board. So we do this from day one. It's on purpose. It's not an accident. It's not like we just didn't have people. It's the way that we believe that you grow and the way that you function within here. So that empowerment, I also think, is part of what builds meaning and purpose to your day. Is it's more than just writing code. Yes, there's that important aspect of we have to get our code, we have to be developing it, we have to be delivering it, but you're also investing in people. I would say everyone in our company is there because of the investment we have in youth. And the apprentices program, the apprentice program that we have is really, it's more meaningful than just slinging code all day long. We also embrace guilds. They're kind of cross-functional teams that emerge as an issue arises within our company that needs to be resolved. So something like a security guild of like, what are our security standards that we're going to make sure everyone implements in our software before we start writing it from an architectural standpoint. It's not a team that was assigned that. It's that the team has said this is a problem that needs to be solved, and they form around to figure out how they're going to deal with it. They're mostly technical, though we do have one that's helping take care of like the office and the space around it, making sure we've got all the thoughts put in place around that. Our networks are up, all of that fun stuff. Amazing a number of times that the internet goes down at a software company, isn't it? But these are guilds that allow people to really take kind of the next level of leadership within the organization as a whole. And so, again, we're trying to push as much of this down as we can and not make it driven from the top, because that takes away that autonomy, that takes away that drive towards mastery, that takes away your purpose of what you're involved with. The more we can push down to the teams, the more that we can get them engaged on what's happening. And what's amazing to me is it's in line with the vision. When you empower those people, when you put that in their hands, I don't have to stand up there and be like, guys, you're going off a totally different direction. This is the way that we're trying to go. Why am I pulling you from over here? Like, they're on board with us. They want to go the same direction that we're going. That doesn't mean that I don't have to create a lot of clarity. I believe clarity brings energy. Best example I can give is when I have to clean my garage. Right? When I first look at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? This thing is a disaster. I don't even know where to start. I have no clarity, I have no energy, and I usually end up sitting on the couch. But if I come in and my wife says, clean your toolbox, okay, that's in the corner. I can get energy around that. And because she gave me clarity of goal, I was able to go after it, and I could accomplish that. Eventually what ends up happening is because all my tools overflow into the next shelf, I end up cleaning the whole garage anyways, because I had some place to start. I had clarity of understanding of what I needed to do. So by giving that clarity, then things start to grow. That's what I feel DLA is doing. DLA is giving that clarity. We're saying, here's the metrics that we're holding you to. Here's the goals that we have for you. We want you to go after those. We're then going to empower you. We're going to put you in leadership positions on that front, and we're going to make sure we're good. But we're going to put a safety net around you to make sure that we're delivering things appropriately. Because again, ultimately our reputation is staked on the fact that you need to deliver code. It needs to be quality. It needs to be delivered on time. We're delivering, what was the metric, Kendra? 96% of everything we're doing is being delivered on time or early, and 92% is being delivered early. And this is with people who are sometimes working 15 hours a week. So that's, I think, a testament to the process and the team. So my summary, and I think young developers are capable of way more than we trust them with. I think they're far more innovative and far more capable. I think the reason we don't trust them is because we're afraid to. The reason we're afraid to is because it is our neck that's put on the line. And so it's an understandable fear, not saying it isn't, but I think they're capable of doing a lot more. And if you can get the systems and tools in place, primarily through processes and accountability, you can allow those young developers to thrive. And I've seen it. We have experience after experience after experience of watching them deliver high quality, amazing solutions on time, and we're having very little bugs come back from the client from that standpoint. I also believe that learning is experiential. So the longer we keep developers on training wheels, that's the longer it's going to take for them to grow. So we need to embrace the experience and put the systems and tools around them so that they can ride their bike, they can go after it wholeheartedly, and they can be effective in what it is that they're doing. That's all I really have to share. I wanted to open it up. I feel like everyone has experience in this environment. So I wanted to give an opportunity to have a conversation around it here at the end. So does anyone have any thoughts or feelings? Yeah?
Well, I have a question about your guilds.
Yeah.
Do you build development time in for the guilds, or are you expecting that to be more self-organized time?
It's self-organized time. And so part of the reason then is the metrics say, to work efficiently, by the time you agree to start a story, that you should be done on a certain number of days. It's not hours, it's days. So I'm not going to micromanage your time from an hour standpoint. You know what that means. So if it's a medium, it's going to be 5 days for you to get that through all the process, and you want to take an hour or two to be a part of the guild, great, do it. That's part of that autonomy. You have flexibility and understanding from that standpoint. Yeah.
Do you have any visibility into how these students do in school? Are they tracking better? Are they getting better jobs?
So we ask them on how they're doing at school in general. Most of them say it's kind of fun when they get into some of the more advanced classes because they've already seen a lot of the solutions that they're now being asked to solve. While they're in school, we work pretty close with them to make sure that their grades are effective and okay. We treat it more like an athletic scholarship than anything else, where we're kind of along the side. I mean, at the end of the day, they're doing their thing and they have to do school, but we're flexible there and we understand that. Most of them, Dylan would have to probably be able to speak to it better. I think I'd terrify him if I asked him to come up here and talk about it. But in general, I think they would say that it's been a very, very positive thing. They've learned a ton. And every one of our devs, except for one, has gotten a job, and that one didn't want one. So, any other thoughts, any other questions?
Describe this day one person that comes into your organization. They're already in school, they're almost finished?
They are. They've finished. in ACM data structures, from an ACM curriculum standpoint, there's ACM data structures class, something along those lines. I think they call it a Core 2 class. That they've already gotten through that. So basically they've gotten through the weed outs. So we're not teaching the basics of programming. They know that. We're teaching software engineering. And so it's the process of engineering software that we're really more into than it is, how to write a for loop. It's a pretty intense process. I think we had seven open positions last summer and we had 80 applicants. So it was a very intense group-based project, group-based interview. Yeah?
Do you ever have like washouts or anything? Like, I mean, we like to pretend that everybody's awesome all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Actually, it's part of what I love about the program. We had one person who worked on it for a summer and was just like, I hate web development, like just despise it. I'm going to go into machine level, the word just left me. Yeah, machine learning type stuff. And so he's like, I'm out. Awesome. Yeah.
If somebody's just saying, I'm going to write a book, like you try and talk them off.
We haven't had any of those yet. Yes, we have. We haven't had any of those yet. I've had a couple of people who are like, hey, I'm going to go a different direction, and I'm like, great, please do. I want you to come out of here. Like, we're looking for the people who are passionate around what they're doing too, right? So the earlier I can find that, frankly, the investment that I have in them, while it's significant, it's also smaller than it is if they had graduated and I invested in them. So if they can find it earlier, that's a benefit to them and to me. And I want them to. And so I think that's also, that's because.
It's hard, so sometimes you need to be talked off the ledge.
Yeah, it is. It is. But that's why we consider ourselves a people development company more than we consider ourselves a software development company, is because I'm going to have those kinds of conversations, and there are difficult things, and there are people who have just decided this isn't for me. I don't blame them. It's hard. And
yeah, sometimes I want to go grow tomatoes. That's why I was.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
We have the coaching process too. So we
do.
have FTEs that regularly interact with the apprentices and kind of keep that communication open.
Yeah.
To make sure that it's like, if it was a long-term decision, that they're definitely sure that, yeah, like you said.
Correct.
Great. But we kind of have that constant interaction too.
Correct.
One of that it is real.
A lot of the feedback that has come from the millennials, right, is that they like a lot of feedback. They like a lot of feedback. They like a lot of touch points. So we do try and schedule bi-weekly touch points with them where we're having that feedback on a regular basis and helping them understand how they fit within the organization as a whole. Ironically, what I think is funny about millennials is all the things that they want that people are all upset about. When we implement it, we end up implementing it across the company as a whole, and the rest of the company really likes it too. So I'm not sure that they're that far off base from what it is that people just in general want to see in their lives and in their career. So, any other thoughts? Anyone else have experiences they want to share? Mm-hmm.
Seems like there's a lot of colleges in the U.S. and
yeah.
You're just in Indianapolis. Are you franchising? Are you looking at that? Or?
The short answer is no. The long answer is it has crossed my mind. Because I do think we've stumbled upon something here in being able to be effective with people through our processes and systems that allow us to be effective there. I haven't gone there yet. We're finalizing some last minute details, and then I'm starting to look at how do I scale from there. That's more the business strategy side of things, but it's really hard to sell this, frankly. The most common feedback I get is, I know how drunk I was in college, and I don't want you writing that code. And you laugh, and you're like, yeah, but we've got things that'll fix that. So I'm still working through that sales pitch on how does that work, because I know they're effective. I've got metrics that show they're effective. I'm seeing that history. I share that with them. There's that underlying bias that we're still working through. How do we get past that? So, well, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing your time with me on this, and thanks.